welcome to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name's Carl. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you haven't subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you consider subscribing so we can help the channel grow. Right, well, welcome to part 2 of the de Havilland Chipmunk T10 full build in 1/48 scale from Airfix. What we're going to do now is going to chat about the engine a little bit, and then we'll crack on with the rest of the build. I think we should be able to get the engine in and the rest of the main construction done and in this video, and be ready for paint for the next video. Right then, this is how we left the end of the last video where the cockpit was installed. I've done a little bit more tidying up and close up the seam lines and everything else like that. Make sure that the engine bay bulkhead's in there securely. I haven't touched the engine bay bulkhead, and that's just as weathered as it was before, so it looks just the same as when I glued it in. What we're going to do now is going to move on to the engine bits. Here's one of the frames that holds the engine in place. That's going to be in a sort of like in cockpit green. There's one of the tabs that holds the door open, or the panel open, the engine panel. So if I want to view the engine, I think I might just do one side because there's detail work I want to do on it, and I can't do both sides by the looks of all the stuff that's in there. Right, these are the doors and the front and the rear, and there's a lot of injector pin marks there that are still going to need to be dealt with even further than they already are. I'm not a fan of that by air or putty. Right, we have here the carburetor and inlet manifold assembly. What happens is the carburetor area has a little sort of like pin that it slots onto, and the inlet manifold fits into 4 little slots down by the cylinder heads. Nice secure fit, and should be easy to install. Here's the exhaust as well. I drilled out the end. It actually, I'm quite pleased how it came out, but I'm just thinking, well, once I've got it on, I won't be able to see it because it's going to be facing away from me. You'd have to look really hard to actually see the hole I've drilled, but I know it's there, as they say. So I'm actually pleased with how that's come out. Right, so now we've got this the starboard side of the engine. What I'm thinking of doing is, I'm thinking here where the magneto is. I'm just pointing to the magneto now. Right, there's a HT lead that comes down and across level with the cylinder heads. So what I'm thinking of doing is running a line there using a bit of lead wire, because this all seems to be like sleeves, or a sleeve that protects all the HT leads that run into the magneto. I've drilled a hole there in the bottom just so I can fit this wire in. It's a 1mm hole, which is the same size as the wire. I'm going to put that in and then just bend it round so it's level with the cylinder heads, and I can run the HT leads down into that area and they can run up to the magneto then. Now that's how it'd be, but I think this is probably going to be my only bit of scratch building. There's a lot inside there. I sort of get like overwhelmed when I look at how much stuff's in there. So I'm leaving these HT leads, which is electrical like wire, I'm leaving them with the sleeves on, because looking at the photograph that I've got, they are quite chunky and have a sleeve around them. So I'm thinking I want to keep that thickness rather than just bare wire, or using a single piece of wire, which would have looked a bit too thin. So, and also this engine was like in 2019. It was for this actual scheme that I'm doing, this actual aircraft, they had a refurbed engine sent to them in 2019, and it's not going to be light grey. It's going to be sort of like almost a German grey. So I'm thinking of painting it that colour. So I'll do the German grey colour. Obviously the cylinder heads will be sort of like aluminium or steel colour. But the cylinder heads will be sort of the same colour, and the cylinders will be aluminium or steel colour. So that's what I'm looking at for the paint job on that. You know, it's a really dark grey, the engine these days. Also on here, what we've got is, when you get the kit, where I'm pointing now, all those slots where the push rods are have plastic in between them, and I wanted to be able to see the individual push rods just like they are on the real engine. So I spent ages just scraping out that bit of plastic that is between those two, each pair of push rods. It come out great. I don't even know if we're going to be able to see it, because I'm not sure whether we're going to have that side open yet, because there's a lot of detailing work that should be done on that side as well, and I'm not sure if I'm up to that yet. It's only my 7th model scratch building. I'm very, very, very much a noob at. But basically that's pretty much where we are at the moment on the engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to crack on, get it painted up, get the engine assembled, and then we can move on to more of the structural assembly. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm just giving it a coat of black primer, which is the Bay Air black primer, before I move on to like trying to detail the engine. So this is probably the only bit that I'll be using the airbrush on. Right, so what I'm doing now is I'm putting some cockpit green. I had to mix it myself because I haven't got any cockpit green, but cockpit green on the struts that hold the engine in place, and also the interiors of the panels that are going to be visible from the engine compartment, because I'm hopefully going to leave the doors open. These are the brackets that you need to glue on if you can have the panels open. Right, so now what we're going to do is going to start painting the engine. I'm using steel here to do the actual cylinders. So I'm just using like a small brush. It's not the smallest brush I've got, but it's a small brush, and we just paint the cylinders. The reason I've left the engine apart in 2 hours and not glued them together yet is because I want the back of the engine to be like painted. It just gives me easier access to the rear of the cylinders. Right, now I switched paints to aluminium for the heat shields. I think that's what they are, they dissipate heat, I'm not sure. But anyway, but these are supposed to be aluminium, which I would have thought would have been slightly different colour once it started dry, but when I looked at it afterwards, no, they look exactly the same. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is, keeping with the aluminium paint, but I'm doing the push rod covers that I actually separated. I spent ages just making sure that you could see 2 of these, because in between them, when you get the kit, is there's like plastic between the 2 push rod like tubes covers. So they're getting a coat of aluminium. This is another reason I wanted the engine not to be glued together just yet, because I can get to the rear of the push rod covers here. And what we're doing now is we moved on to sort of the German greyish. It's not exactly a German grey, it's just a really dark grey. And I mean, this isn't 100% accurate, if you know what I mean, but what it is, it's a nod towards the refurbished engine that they got in 2019, which was a dark grey colour. So all of that was done in that sort of German grey, and as you can see now, what I'm doing is I'm mucking about with the wiring harness. Now we move on to a bit of assembly here, and I'm doing the horizontal stabilisers. They went together, you know, really easy. A little bit of Tamiya extra thin, and they were quickly in place. Right, I'm trying a bit of dry fit in here, and I did dry fit it first, but as you can see, there's a big gap on the horizontal stabiliser right up against the tail, so I'm going to have to use some probably some air held putty just to fill that gap there. It went together quite easy though. So now I'll put on the horizontal stabilisers, and the one that goes on the starboard side is the one that's got the trim tab, so make sure you do it that way around. Then I put the rudder on, made sure it was straight. There's no way to angle it. I mean, it's fixed, so you've got to basically have it straight. Right, now these are the spin strakes, or anti-spin strakes. It's not so much that it stops you spinning, it's that it makes spinning more predictable. So when they're teaching how to recover from spins in this aircraft, it's a lot more predictable for the instructor to be able to teach the student how to recover from spins. There's a couple of little bits there that are going to need a touch of putty. Right, what I'm doing now is I'm putting the support beam in on the lower half of the wings, and as Gary said from Gary's stuff, I'll do one side, glue down one side at a time. So I'll glue that down, make sure that's firm, and once that's down I'm quite happy with it, then I'll glue down the other side, and apparently it keeps the dihedral right if you do it that way. Just pump some clamps on now, I've got it in position, just hold it in place. Let that glue dry a bit. Right, now what I'm popping in here is one of the lights. I bet I forget to paint the inside of that silver. Right, so now what I'm doing is doing a bit of weathering. This is just an oil wash, using a bit of burnt umber and a little bit of black to make a dark brown. Sorry about my hand being in the way, but all I did was just sort of spread this all over the engine, and I wasn't too worried about how messy it was, because I knew with a little bit of once I dry the brush off and use a little bit of odorless thinner on there, I can just pull it all back again and get it to the level I want. I just want a little bit of grime around there. I mean, we're on like 2025 now, so that engine's been in there 6 years, so it will have gathered some. Also on the inside of the panels, make sure if you're going to have the engine panels open, that you weather the inside of the panels as well, because you want them to sort of match the interior. I just slapped it on, then started pulling it off again once the brush had been dried off and cleaned, and I tried to do some streaks going down as if some dirt and grime were like gravity was pulling it down. Then I thought I'd like stipple it a little bit as well, just to add a little bit of variation to it, a bit of modulation, and actually it came out really well. Same with here as well. I just went around and was pulling off any sort of excess that was in there. Right, now what I'm doing is a little bit of dry brushing. It's just that German grey lightened up, and it actually works good for chipping on the frame as well, because it's that dark colour does go well against the cockpit green. Now what I've done, I've lightened it again, and I'm going over again and adding a little bit more wear. I'm not going too mad with the weathering on this. I'm not making it like beat up completely. Then I used a bit of steel paint on a brush. Actually, no, this is the really light version of the German grey, and I'm just adding some scratches on there. I just wanted it to look as if it had been like maintained and been worked on and stuff like that. I didn't want it to get completely beat up, but it does add that like nice sort of lot of one effect. I was really pleased with how this came out, funny enough. Now what I did, I added a little bit of steel, just for maybe a couple of deeper scratches, or a little bit where it's been worn a little bit more. And this was really quite stark at first, but what I did do was, as you can see in a second, I actually went back to that sort of like a grey colour again, and I just went over it, some of the silver, and just like toned it back just a notch, and it just pushed it back into the rear again, which made it look a little bit more realistic. I'm not trying to be 100% accurate here, I'm just trying to think what would be going on there. Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the wing assembly. This is the lower half of the wing. Now it takes a little bit of jiggle to get it in there initially, but it does pop in. Put the front end in first, and once you get the front end in, push the back end down, and then stick a little bit extra thin on there. There might be a little gap, as you can see there, between the wing and the fuselage, but now I just kept going along, giving it a little squeeze with a pair of tweezers to close it up. Everything about getting these wings right, I found, is basically patience. Do a little bit at a time. Add a little bit of super glue there because it was still springing apart, so I just wanted something that would hold it together while it dried, and then I was waiting to add a bit more Tamiya extra thin. But it did go together nicely. There wasn't a problem at all once it was together. It just needed that little bit. Added a bit of Tamiya extra thin to the front then, once I knew it was all seated nicely. Now what I'm doing is attaching the upper wing. I put the wing root area in first, and there's some lug-tating lugs in there, but what I did was, after I did the dry fit there, I went around with some of the Airfix, the Humbrol glue. It was just fine, and I just added a bit of that all the way around the edge of the wing, because I just want a little bit more strength there to hold it in place while I made sure everything was closed up before I run Tamiya extra thin down there. So all I did was put it in there, a little squeeze all the way around, not too much, and then I started running the Tamiya extra thin. The wing root, actually, I'm surprised how well it fitted. It really was nice. I mean, it just needed to hold in for a little bit just to get it right in the right place. Then I just run Tamiya extra thin around the edge of the wing. And this, like I said before, just take your time, have a little bit of patience, keep checking it, and just add a little bit of Tamiya extra thin where you need to, give it a little squeeze, hold it in place, and it really does go together quite nicely. So I was really pleased with how that went together. Right, what I'm doing now is I've done the other wing, and you've already seen one, so you probably don't want to sit there and watch me do the other one. So what we're going to do now is put the ailerons on. Again, just a bit of Tamiya extra thin, and then they just slotted in perfectly. Just make sure that they're aligned, and it was very, very simple. Right, what we're doing now is we're moving on to assembling the rear canopy using the little jig that comes in the kit. There's a little bit at the front of it that you're not supposed to glue, that's part of the jig, and it really makes things awkward. I didn't glue it, just like I said, but I think it would have been a lot more simple if I could have just glued that front part of the jig in. Once you've got it together, which is a bit of a pain, you just add a little drop of Tamiya and let it capillary action its way around. Not too much, just enough to let it run around the canopy. Once you've got it seated, it's okay, but it is very fiddly. I'm not a fan of it, to tell you the truth. Right, now we've got the assembly done, or the main assembly done. We're going to move on to sort of priming. I'm going to do a black primer on this because I'm still thinking I'm going to do black basing, and I'm using the Airfix black primer. Just a light coat at first, and I did have a lot of problem with tip dry, even though it was well thinned. The climate over it is not really good, and it's a 0.38 needle as well. I'm using my older airbrush for the priming, and it still caused like issues. Right, as you can see, I've left quite a few items off as like little sub-assemblies. I thought it'd be easier just to paint them while they're off the aircraft at the moment. So like the canopy, I wanted that painted separately from the main fuselage, and then there's the other things like the spinners. Those two doors up there as well, I wanted them separate because I've got to try and figure out a way to paint them, because I've got to line up the black and the red somehow. So I'm doing the prop at the moment, then I move on and do the other little bits and pieces. And these are all going to be painted up separately and then attached to the aircraft at a later time, nearer the end of the build, as it were. Right then, as you can see, the aircraft is now primed, and all the little bits and pieces that are going to be assembled later on are all got like now 3 coats of primer on there, and I'm sure you didn't want to sit there and watch me put 3 coats of primer on. I'm pleased how it came out, and I'm looking forward to getting some paint on this aircraft. Right, I hope you enjoyed the video. That's basically the end of it, and what we've got is we've got the build together, and we've got a nice few coats of primer down, so now we're ready to move on to the actual painting of the aircraft and the weathering and the rest of it. So the next video will be the last video probably. If you've got any advice about painting the Chipmunk and how much weathering you should do on it, I really think it should be fairly clean. Don't forget to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, because giving it a like helps with the algorithm on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click the little belly thing, which will notify you of any videos that I put up as soon as I put them up. And I'll see you guys later.